Welcome back to Heroic Book Adventures. I'm Steve, and I wanted to sneak an entry in for the Rocket Summer Reading event. I will link to all the host channels below. The prompt for the third week of July is to read a science fiction story from the decade of the 1950s. So I chose Childhood's End from Arthur C. Clarke. My first experience with this story was actually the television miniseries adaptation that aired in 2015 over, I think it was 3 nights on the Sci-Fi channel. And like most of the movies made for that channel, it wasn't high budget or anything, but it had a really great concept. And the concept is what makes good science fiction. So it's one I've been wanting to read for a long time, and now after 10 years, I finally have. So one day, these large alien spaceships show up and just hover above all the major cities in the world. And the leader of them, Supervisor Corellin, broadcasts over all the communication devices of Earth to everybody in very good English that they're not there to harm anybody. They're actually there to help and solve all of humanity's problems. The only thing that they ask for in return is complete compliance. Uh, any disagreement will not be tolerated. So, of course, there are some like rogue countries that say we're not going to do as we're told and will actually try to attack the overlords, as they're come to be called. And rather than punishing these countries, the overlords will instead do like a harmless demonstration of power, basically to demonstrate that their power is absolute and they're not to be challenged. So the lesson is learned real quickly that there is nothing humanity can really do other than just follow their orders. And from that point on, the only person that Corellin will speak to is the Secretary General of the United Nations. So he is brought up on a regular basis to their ship to speak to Corellin, but it's done through a screen. So the Secretary General or none of humanity has ever seen Corellin or any of the overlords, has no idea what they look like or how many of them there are. They won't divulge that information. So they do a bunch of benevolent things. They put an end to war and poverty and hunger and all these things, basically create a new utopia for humanity. But there's lots of people still questioning, well, why are they doing this? What is their real ulterior motives? What is their true plan for us? And of course, they're going to be skeptical. So the Secretary General brings it up to Corellin. Well, why don't you show yourselves to everybody? Because if they can see who you are, and what you're about, maybe it'd be easier to accept your rule. And Corellin says, well, that's not a good idea. Humanity is not ready to see us for what we are. So, time passes, and eventually, with enough pressing, Corellin agrees, okay, here's what I'll do. 50 years from today, we will show ourselves to humanity. I believe by that point, people will have been prepped and accepted our existence enough by that point to show ourselves. So that day does come, and they step out for everyone to see. And what they look like comes as a complete shock to everybody, which increases suspicion even more. So from that point forward, most people are living this basic utopia, but there are still people challenging what's going on. Like we follow a astronomer who is tracking their supply ship that goes back and forth between their home world. And he devises a plan to sneak onto it as a stowaway in hopes that he can get to their home world and see what it looks like there and what's going on. And the children are starting to all act very strangely. Nobody knows what's going on with them. So as the story unfolds, you're getting a glimpse into what the overlord's plans are and what the fate of humanity is going to turn out to be. In 1990, Clarke himself wrote a few-page foreword to this and made some minor modifications to the first chapter. Because in the original, the humans were having a space race to get to the moon. But obviously by that point in history, that had come and passed already. So he altered it to be a space race to get to Mars. So if you are to find a copy of this book that was printed prior to 1990, it will be the original unedited edition. And if you find one that's printed after 1990, like this one, it will just include those minor modifications that Clarke himself authorized just to bring it a little bit more up to date. I feel like the ideas and concepts in this book were really cool, really well done. And don't be turned off by the age of this, because I feel like it's held up very well. Sure, the science fiction authors of this era, when they were speculating on what life would be like in the 21st century, they're never spot on because obviously that would have been impossible. But I was still rather impressed with like how close he was on some ideas. Some of them was just like, yeah, he kind of had some glimpse into what our current day would be like and how humans would behave under uh, such circumstances as were put into the book. A character focused reader is probably going to be a little bit disappointed with the characters in this because they're not super fleshed out. They're mainly a vehicle to tell the story that pushes along the ideas and concepts. But I still thought the characters were good enough that I was invested into what was going to happen to them, and I didn't feel like it detracted from the story in any way. I'm giving this one a solid 9 out of 10. This is one that, if you are a fan of speculative fiction, it is a must read. And if you're just maybe looking to taste test, dip your toes in the water of what classic science fiction was like, I believe that this would be a very good entry point. Because even though the ideas and concepts are very interesting, they're still very digestible at the same time. There's not anything like real mind bending in this. So any reader with an open mind is going to find something in this that they're going to find interesting and is going to make them think. So reading this also made me see why Arthur C. Clarke is considered such a legend in this genre. Because when I think of what the culture and lifestyle and technology was of people living in the 1950s, for them to have read this book must have just completely blown people away. So yeah, Childhood's End is a really good one. I would check it out if you're looking for something like this. So I will see you heroes on the next adventure laid out for us by our overlords.